welcome to the Island Lamb, and I'm Diane. This is episode 11, Enchanted Forest, and I hope you enjoyed that walk with me through the Enchanted Forest. It is also known as the Nathan Mott Park. And in 1939, a woman by the name of Lucretia Mott put in her will that she wanted her farm upon her death to be turned into a park, and it has been since. And as you begin the walk, you walk through beautiful open spaces of meadows, an occasional stone wall, lots of milkweed, which attracts monarch butterflies, so you can just imagine what that looks like in the summer. And then you start a slight climb, and as you start the climb, you begin to see chestnut trees and red maples, apple trees, and an assortment of pine trees. And they're not laid out in such a way that they look like they were planned. It's just a very natural hike. And some of these trees are starting to encroach on the path, but our conservancy does a fantastic job of pruning and trimming and keeping this trail well maintained. So you will also see beautiful lichen on the stone walls and all kinds of mosses. We do not have bear, fox, skunk, squirrel, chipmunk, fisher cats on the island. We have deer, mice, and birds, and that's it. And the deer were not indigenous to the island. They were brought over many years ago by someone who thought they would look pretty. And so now we have quite a population of deer on the island, and we do have a hunting season that helps us control the size of the herd. I didn't see any deer on the walk this time, but I did spot a few blue jays, and I saw a couple of cardinals, and you never know what you're going to see on this walk. One time my husband and I were on the walk, and we heard buzzing, and then all of a sudden we heard trampling, and it appeared that a stag had stumbled onto a hive. So, but we don't worry about, we don't have poisonous snakes on the island. There are no predators. So it's a very safe, beautiful, and enchanted experience. So what do I have on? Well, you saw this in a couple of episodes ago. This is the Birch Bay. I went into great detail about this piece. This was designed by Julie Hoover. It's made in Brooklyn Shelter, and it is the color Snowbound. And some of the unique properties, if you don't know or haven't used Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, this yarn is a 2-ply spun woolen style yarn, and it is remarkably light, warm, and very lofty. If you were to take the strand and pull on it, you could break it apart. But as you begin to knit with it, you get comfortable with the tension. It is not like Newton. It has a little bit more structure to it, but because it is spun, it does have that very lofty feeling, and you can see it's got great stitch definition, and there is a lot of information in my previous episode regarding this pattern, and I will also put a little bit more in the show notes this time. But what I really wanted to focus on today is the Circulo jeans jacket pattern. I mentioned this a couple of episodes ago, and I told you that my mom made a jean jacket when I was about 16. We lost it in a fire. We've lost the pattern. I've been obsessed with trying to find a pattern to the point where I had sketched several times and thought maybe I would try to design my own. I really love to knit. I'm not really one that wants to sit down and design, but I was at that point. But last year, while looking at Circulo yarns, I found a yarn called Jeans. And as I followed that link, I found the jeans jacket pattern made by the same company, which is located in Brazil. And again, here is the pattern. And so when I first started knitting on this, I decided not to follow the instructions because the instructions said to chain 7 and to crochet, single crochet 11 inches for the front piece, front left, 11 inches for the front right, 21 pieces for the back, I believe 11 inches for the cuff. So let's say we were working on this front piece. So you create that band with crochet. And then using a number 8 needle, you pick up stitches and you start knitting. And you decrease a couple of, every 4 rows or so, you decrease up to 2 stitches, and then you increase. And that gives you a little bit of waist shaping. And you can kind of see that here. We have a little bit of waist shaping. And then you start making your decreases for the sleeve. And then you decrease for the shoulders. And I was not sure that I wanted to tackle crochet. I knew there was going to be a lot of finishing work on this piece. And so I just decided to start knitting. And it didn't take me long to realize that maybe I made a mistake, and a viewer, the Golden Bliss, suggested just try the crochet. She thought it would definitely give it structure, and it certainly has. So you can see this very little stretch, and it supports the rest of this and really does give it that jacket feel. I am so happy that I ripped out my knitting, did the crochet, picked up the stitches. So you put this jacket together and then you crochet these strips. So you chain and then you single crochet 1 row. There'll be one that is 18 inches that's going to go across the back. That's this piece here. And then there are these shorter pieces that are going to go down in the back. And you can see that mimicked in the front. So we've got this piece going across and 2 pieces going down. And the way you're securing these is you're embroidering with Circulo's almost like thread, 100% cotton, this golden yellow color. And I doubled it. And then you stitch with a running stitch up one side and down one side. And you place these strips on the fabric. And then I did it across here. And then they had you just, without a strip, just running stitch around the bottom, running stitch around the cuff, around the collar. I have not put the back pieces, these back strips on. I'm going to work on that today. I am waiting for my order to come in with my rivet dungaree buttons. I can't wait to put them on. I believe there will be 5 buttons down the front and a button on the cuff. I have taken some close-up photos of this jacket that I will insert so you can get a close-up look. I am over my obsession with my mom's jean jacket. This filled the bill, fit the bill. I'm looking forward to wearing it. I think it will be more like a spring and fall piece. I'm looking forward to wearing it with white jeans, a little white tang underneath. And I probably am going to, I haven't decided. My mom did grosgrain ribbon inside to cover her stitching. But with the this is also a crocheted band up the front and back, by the way. We picked up what did we do? We picked up stitches and we crocheted back and forth. And I think because it is so sturdy, I'm okay with my stitching. I think it looks tidy. I might not do that. We'll see. We'll see when I get the buttons on. I did think I might need to do something. The collar was rolling initially, but after I did my 2 rows of my running stitch, that kind of straightened itself out. The pattern does have you have a slit in the sleeve, so when that button goes on, you're going to have a little bit of room here. I can turn that cuff up, and again, I don't mind how my finishing work looks, so I don't think I'm going to do the grosgrain ribbon. So I'm very pleased with this, the outcome, and I think I did my mom right by reproducing this. I can't wait for her to see this episode so she can take a look at this. She was my inspiration. It's not exactly like hers, but I think in this modern day, I think it fits, like I said, it fits the bill. The next thing I mentioned to you last week was a coat that my mother gave me as a kit for Christmas one year. And I want to show you the beautiful way she presented it to me. In this hat box, which looks very antique-ish. It was a Christmas gift, and there was a beautiful big bow on this, and I had no idea what I was going to see when I opened this beautiful hat box, but what I saw was a pattern and the yarn and the buttons to make a coat. And here is the pattern. And my mom found this in the Ram's Wool catalog. And this is a Canadian company in Winnipeg. And there are beautiful, I mean, this is, let's see, this catalog is from fall, winter of 03 and 04. So, I mean, I told you I've been sitting on this project for a long time. I do believe they're still in business, and there's some beautiful, beautiful patterns in here. All kinds of things, but this particular catalog was titled Tweeds and Textures. So I told you a little bit about what happened. I knit the back immediately. I couldn't wait to get home. And then I did the left and front, and I was running out of yarn. I did run out of yarn, and Ram's Wool sent me more yarn, and I knew I could tell I wasn't going to have enough yarn. And then finally I realized what I had done is I was carrying my rib needle and my body needle at the same time. I didn't switch everything over to the body needle, which is why I ran out of yarn. I ripped it out. I let it sit for many years. I have reknit the left and front and the sleeves. I want to show you the work on the sleeves is in Intarsia. I've reworked the sides. And there's this beautiful Intarsia striping that happens at the waist. We have this Intarsia happening again at the bottom. It is made in Lettlopi light and some Aran tweed. And this will give you a little idea of all these different colors. So there's this beautiful kind of tweedy green. There's an eggplant, a beautiful brown, a gray. Up here we're seeing 2 different shades of rust with that eggplant. And then this beautiful Mission Falls alpaca soft yarn that we're using for the Intarsia. So I am looking forward to seaming this up and working on the button band. I have some decisions to make with the button band. I did attempt to make the button band as one piece and then sew it on. I'm not happy with the way the button band is kind of warping a little bit. So I'm just going to take this down. I may try a smaller needle, or I may try the method where you pick up and you know, work across, and I may try that. So I'm excited to get this finished, and I don't know that I'm going to be showing it to you next week, but I hope it'll be sometime soon. One thing I did want to talk about is finishing. Finishing this, I mean, this was all about the finishing, because when it was all knitted up and pieced together, it was really unremarkable. So it was all the details in the finishing. And I think that one thing I have learned over the years is that if you're going to spend the money to buy the yarn, and you're going to take the time to knit the piece, it's all going to come down to the finishing in the end as to how that piece is really going to fit you, how it's going to look, and is it going to look professional. And when I started to work on the finishing of this, I was reminded of a book that I had and a class that I took with Deborah Newton, who is a Rhode Island native, and she got her start in costume making, which is kind of interesting. So she had a very good background in sewing, and I have that same background, and so does my mom. I mean, my mom is a great sewer, and she actually did some tailoring, and I was in 4-H, and my mom and I did a lot of sewing for 4-H, and I made all my own prom gowns, and so I have a good understanding for the construction of a garment, and I think that's helpful, especially when you're piecing. You know, when you're working top down, yes, it's still important that you understand how you want this to fit you, but especially when you're dealing with pieces and are you setting in the sleeve? Is there a saddle? What is the construction? So I took Deborah Newton's finishing class here on Block Island, and I mentioned Northlight Fiber last week and how they gave classes or invited different designers out. And Deborah did this class, which coordinated with her book, Finishing School, a masterclass for knitters. If you don't have this book and you are wanting to improve on your finishing, or if you are like a lot of us who don't really love finishing, I think that her approach and attitude towards finishing definitely changed my opinion. So she says, don't wait till the end of your project to start thinking about finishing. think about it at the very beginning. So while you're reading the pattern, try to visualize, how is this constructed? Look at the schematic. Is this schematic going to suit my body type? You can change, we all know we've made modifications, but you can really take that schematic. You can even write on that schematic. You can say, oh, I like waist shaping. I don't want waist shaping. I want more ease. I want to lower that neckline. I want to change this to a crop, especially if it's multiple colors. If you're doing Fair Isle, maybe I want to leave out a band of patterning. So here's the opportunity at the beginning. The other thing that she talks about as far as finishing is, swatching. Some of us love to swatch, some of us hate to swatch, some of us don't swatch, and I didn't swatch when I first started knitting. But there's an opportunity in swatching, and I love her approach to it. It's a chance to try out all the patterns, all the stitches, all the special things that are going to be happening that maybe you're not sure about. So for instance, let's say this was going to have a shawl collar or some kind of a collar that was unique and different as this is. Use that as a swatch. Put on the stitches, make the collar. Try your top stitching out on that swatch, okay? Let's say you're doing something that's in Fair Isle or it's in Icelandic design and you want to get a feel for your tension. This is where I learned, do a sleeve. Here's a great opportunity to do a swatch that if all works well, you can just keep working on it. Now you've got a sleeve going. The other thing she talks about are edges. So we don't have to accept the edge that we're looking at in a pattern if we're not comfortable with it. If we think that we'd rather do in this case, I wasn't going to do the crocheted, or maybe I want to do a scalloped edge. My mom, you saw in a previous episode, she did a lot with edging. She made a cardigan and didn't really like it that much, so she seamed it down the front and she made a beautiful ruffle and turned it into a pullover. So there's a great opportunity to think about what we want before we start, what we want the outcome to be before we start knitting. The other thing that's great about working up a sleeve, I think, is you are getting a feel for the texture of the yarn. Is this what I expected from this yarn? I don't know how many times I've swatched, a 4x4 or a 6x6, and yeah, this is great. But it wasn't until I really got into the project that I said, oh, this looks a little see-through, or this is not acting the way I thought it was going to be. So I'm trying to think about some other things that are just incredible in this book. She talks about, I'm going to show you what I mean about swatching. So here's a perfect example of what you can do with a swatch. You see how she swatched this stitch pattern, and then she played with, how do I want my button band to look? And she tried a couple of different, seed stitch, a garter stitch, a knit stitch, different kinds of buttons. So in this case, she did not make a sleeve, but she really got a lot of great use out of her swatch. She talks about blocking and the benefits of blocking and why we want to block. And here, we know we need to block with lace. I mean, here's a good example. When look at how small that swatch is, but once it's, blocked and pinned down. So anyway, I thought this was a good time to talk about it, where I've been working on some things that have required some special details to finishing. Like with my coat, I'm going to be playing with that button band. Now that might have been something I could have considered earlier on. I do have some other projects that are kind of sitting in my closet back here. I have a Nikki Epstein triangle poncho. I don't know what I was thinking. I went to Vogue Knitting Live with my mom and we watched this fashion show, and it was a Nikki Epstein fashion show, and this model came out with this gorgeous poncho on that had a Celtic knot in the front and all these, I didn't know they were little triangles. It looked like squares of this beautiful patterning, and I bought the pattern, I bought the yarn, and it's triangles. 4 triangles per square and multiple squares, and you piece this all together, and then you pick up stitches and you build the collar and the sleeves, and I have all the triangles made. I have most of the squares put together. My husband helped me with the schematic on craft paper and actual sizing so I could lay these pieces out. And so that's another piece I'm thinking about that I'll probably going to show you next week. I think that I have covered everything I wanted to cover today. I hope you are having a wonderful December, planning and preparing for the holidays. I hope next week I'll give you a little tour of my Christmas tree and some of my Christmas decorations. But I really just wanted you to feel that forest with me and the enchantment in that forest. And one thing did happen while I was walking in the forest. I was having, you know, sometimes when I get out in nature and my head is clear, little thoughts come to me. And one was that when I journal, which I've been doing again, I did that when I was younger and I started journaling again. When I journal, I find I hear better. Not just listening, I listen better, not just hearing, but I listen better. I listen to my own thoughts, I get them down on paper. It's helping me to listen, I think, better to when people are talking to me, listening to nature. And the other thing is that when I am producing, I'll use that in, in quotes, producing these videos, I am seeing differently. I'm not just looking, I'm really seeing. And so I think that's been two little shifts in my brain that I identified while I was walking in the Enchanted Forest. So I had an enchanted magic moment there. So thank you, and I will see you next week. And just a reminder, if you're enjoying the content of these, would you please subscribe? It will help YouTube know that I am reaching you. It helps me know that I am reaching you. I thank you again for all your wonderful comments. And there was a viewer who suggested, and she was absolutely right, that I get closer shots of the knits so that you can see the details. So you will see, I hope you have seen, I hope I was able to insert them, closer shots of the jean jacket and also of the coat, the colored coat. So I'll see you next week. Bye.